Welcome to Overtime Heroics. I'm Mason Shatwell, and joining me today is Cage Warriors star Nathan Fletcher. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you. Cage Warriors star. That's a nice little introduction there. Cheers, mate.
Good stuff. I seen earlier Cage Warriors put a post out that you've signed a new contract with them. How does it feel to be signing again with Cage Warriors after being with them for so long?
Yeah, good. I'm made up. There's nowhere else I want to be. Do you know what I mean? Like any fighters coming up in Europe who are looking to get to the UFC, like I am, Cage Warriors is the best platform to get you there. So I'm made up to sign another 5 fights with them.
No doubt. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago you improved to 5-0 against a real tough guy in Michel Martigoni. How did it feel getting that win? Because it wasn't all set sail. It was a tough fight for you, and you ended up getting the third round submission.
Yeah, it was a tough fight. To be honest with you, it was the most fun I've ever had in a fight, and it was such a, I think the right word. It was just obviously after every fight, there's a feeling of relief, happiness. All the hard work's paid off. But this one in particular, going 3 rounds against someone who was undefeated, someone who's 6-0, who was kind of being hyped a little bit by Cage Warriors, who had a bit of a good name. He beat good opponents. You know what I mean? He's got like a 6-second knockout on Bellator. He's beat the likes of Wesley Meyer and that. I knew what a big opportunity it was for me fighting him. And then when I got the finish in the 3rd round after the hard fight and after everything I'd actually overcome leading up to the fight with being sick and that before, it was just unbelievable. Yeah.
It was a successful weekend as such for Next Gen at the recent trilogy. Obviously, Matt Bonner, yourself, Paddy Pimblett got the wins. How did it feel, obviously, being a part of that, having a successful weekend at the Cage Warriors Trilogy?
Yeah, it's boss. It's sick having a couple of your teammates on the card with you because then you're not going at it alone. Do you know what I mean? The weight cut, they're all there with you. In the back, warming up, there's a good atmosphere, especially when Paddy's fighting. He kind of takes charge of the whole changing room, no matter what other gyms are in there. Paddy's got his speaker on, his tunes the loudest, and he's like getting the atmosphere going. So that was a sick experience, and obviously to have the other lads get the wins as well. It was a very good weekend.
I just want to touch on Paddy for a moment. Obviously, he's recently signed with the UFC. Do you think that gives Next Gen even more of a good name within the UFC as well? Because obviously you've got the likes of Molly McCann already in there. Do you think that's going to grow Next Gen's status as a high-level gym?
Yeah, 100%. The more fighters we can get in the UFC, the better, it ain't really. And Paddy having such a high profile that he does, like, I can't remember any time the UFC have signed a British fighter and there's been that much hype about them. You'll have seen it yourself on all the likes of Ariel Helwani, even Chael Sonnen put something on about Paddy. Like, the UFC are posting about him, new signing. There's a lot of hype around Paddy coming in. And obviously that's boss for him, and it's brilliant for the likes of me as well, who are going to be, hopefully getting to the UFC in the next year or two myself. Having my teammate there, Paddy, making so much noise, it just puts more eyes on me as well for when I sign to the UFC. So it's brilliant.
You mentioned within the next year or so. Is that the time frame that you want to be in the UFC by?
I think so. The way things are going, if I can fight regularly like I am doing at the minute, like Cage Warriors has been boss even with the pandemic going on. I managed to fight twice last year. Should have been 3 times, but I actually tested positive for COVID on one of them, so obviously I wasn't able to fight. But then I've already fought this year. I'll be out again in June, hopefully. So if I can keep fighting regularly and keep putting together these wins, I don't see why 18 months or so. I mean, I'll be 10-0, ready to sign for the Cage Warriors belt around my waist already. So that's the time frame I'm looking at, about 18 months or so.
Well, I spoke to your teammate the other day, Adam Wilson, and it seems like he's going to be back on the Cage Warriors Trilogy in June. I take it you're going to be on the Trilogy as well?
Yeah, hopefully be on the Trilogy in June. I've not got anything confirmed yet, but I'll be getting matched for that 100%.
Any names in mind?
I don't know. We'll just see what happens, see what they come with. No one in particular, but as long as it's a step up again from Martin Yoni, so someone with a very good record that's going to put me a step closer to the title. I'm looking at maybe 1 or 2 more fights and then fight for the belt, ideally. So someone with a lot of experience, maybe a few more fights than me, and someone with a good record.
Yeah, well, I was going to mention that. I think you're obviously going to be 1, maybe 2 fights at most away from the title because you're 5-0. You've just took out a very good guy in Michel Martingoni, but say the champ, who is the champ now, Jack Cartwright, in the Bantamweight division, is still a champ. How do you assess your chances against him?
Well, I took a lot from his last fight. Obviously with Jack, a lot of his fights have been like first round finishes, so you can't really take a lot from that. I know he's got decent wrestling defense and stuff like that, but if you look at his last fight, he got taken down quite a lot. So obviously my strong suit is me grappling and me jiu-jitsu. So if it were to end up fighting him, I'd be going to that 100%. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned before about you suffering from COVID ahead of your fight that was scheduled in September against Lee Mitchell. How, obviously, you would have only found out, a couple of days before the fight?
Yeah, like the day before the weigh-ins, I think. Because the first time Cage Warriors did a trilogy, we had the tests where you have to wait like 24 to 30 odd hours to get your results back. So as soon as we went into the hotel, we tested them, go into our room to quarantine for that time. And then it's getting to the time when I'm thinking I'm going to get the call here being like, right, come and get your wristband. You can go around the hotel, have a little workout, whatever. And instead, they call us and say, you've all got COVID and you're getting sent home. So I found out literally like a day before the weigh-ins for the fight.
Obviously, that's going to be really gutting for you. How did you feel after being told the news?
Yeah, obviously it was a massive letdown. I prepared very well for that fight. It was the first fight they put on since the pandemic had started, so I really wanted to get out there and be, one of the first fighters to go and fight again in like a behind closed door type setting. Yeah, I was gutted, and then I went home. I remember going home and I just watched every night of the trilogy at home. Obviously, then I had to isolate for 10 days in mine because of COVID. So I sat in that weekend and watched every single fight on the trilogy, and it was just like. So it just lit a fire in me. I was like, right, I cannot wait until they put the next one on now. And then that weekend, they were already announcing like December or they said October, November, December, whatever. We're going to put another one on. So I was just like, right, I'm not going to get out of shape here. I'm going to stay right on it. And then I ended up getting the same fight. I was meant to fight Lee Mitchell in September, and then that fight just got rebooked for the December one. So if anything, it was just more time to prepare for him. So it worked out well.
Well, I remember watching your fight with Lee Mitchell in December, and obviously that wasn't an easy fight either. Obviously, Lee's a very tough opponent, and he dropped you in the first round. How did you manage? Obviously, you get dropped, you come back and get the win. How did you work your way around that?
Yeah, Lee's very good, and I knew that going into the fight. I've watched him literally like since I was fighting amateur. I was looking around at all the bantamweights and flyweights and stuff like that, and Lee Mitchell was always standing out. He was, beating a lot of the top guys at amateur. And then his only loss at pro was to my teammate Liam Gittins, and I know how good Liam is. And then Lee had gone on to finish, I think, his other 3 pro fights. So I knew it was going to be a tough fight. What did surprise me when I fought him is Lee has literally grappled his whole fighting career up until the fight with me. And then he come out and he's like slick southpaw, like slipping shots, countering, getting his foot on the outside. Like his striking had improved a lot, and that kind of threw me off a bit because I was expecting a very wrestling heavy attack from him. So yeah, that threw me off, and then obviously I got dropped. It wasn't like I wasn't massively concussed or anything. Do you know what I mean? Literally, I think he caught me as I was off balance, sat me down, hit me with a good shot, but straight away I was with it. Do you know what I mean? There was no sort of dizziness or anything. I managed to get my underhooks, and I think I had like a butterfly hook, and I popped right back up to my feet, wrestled in, and took him down off it. So I was still right in the fight straight away. However, going back to the corner after the first round, in my head I was like, you probably just lost that round now because you got dropped. Do you know what I mean? I know the way the scoring is. So I had to get myself together and be like, all right, come on, because I've never really lost a round, especially at pro. I'd never lost a round. Do you know what I mean? So to like go out and lose the first round and then have to get me shit together and go and put it on him in the second. I think I did a very good job of like kind of starting the fight afresh, backing him up to the cage, getting the takedown, and then just implementing my game. I think another reason I'll just add into that as to why I think I started a little bit slow in that fight, and I think that had something to do with there being no crowd in attendance. I think normally, especially if I fight locally, I bring a lot of people with me. Like when I fought in Manchester, I brought about 110 people with me, and that energy I got from seeing all my mates, as I'm walking out and all the crowd cheering, that really got me like fired up. And then I ended up going and finishing Joanne Segas in like the first round there. So I feel like I was a little bit less intense coming out to the Lee Mitchell fight because I didn't have that sort of adrenaline that I got from when I fought in front of it with a large crowd. And then going to the Martin Yoni fight, I recognised that from the Mitchell fight and was like, right, I'm going to have to be more switched on early here because I'm not going to get that energy that I get from the crowd. So I'm going to have to kind of get myself psyched up a little bit before I walk out. And my demeanour was a lot different getting in the cage to the last fight than it was with like Lee Mitchell. I felt a lot more switched on and a lot more like aggressive and ready to fight straight away. So I enjoyed that feeling of getting into the cage like that.
Well, obviously, I'm always interested in asking fighters if you can't describe the feeling. Obviously, it's a full crowd, like you mentioned. You had close to 110 people in your last fight with fans. What's that feeling like? Obviously, being able to get the win with all your friends and family in the front rows.
It's just the best feeling on earth, to be honest. Like, yeah, like every fight I've won feels like the best night of my life. Do you know what I mean? Genuinely, like, you can't describe the emotions that you feel. It's just an overwhelming sense of happiness, relief. There's a lot of pressure mounds up. Do you know what I mean? With every fight. The thing is, with fighting, we get to go and perform once every couple of months. Like any other sport, really. If they have a bad day or whatever, or a good day, they get to go and perform again the next weekend. So it's for us, there's a lot more building on each performance. So when you get the win, especially getting a finish, and you just know that all that hard work's paid off, and then on top of that, all your friends and family are there screaming for you. It's just such an amazing feeling.
Do you feel more pressure when your friends and family are there, or do you feel more when obviously there's no fans in the attendance?
To be honest with you, I don't think in terms of pressure, I don't think either of them make a difference. Like the pressure comes from what I put on myself, because I know how hard I worked and I know what each fight means. I know what this means to me. Do you know what I mean? This is like my life. I'm all in on this fight game now. Like in my head, I'm 100% winning the Cage Warriors belt, going to the UFC and winning the UFC belt. That's what I've kind of put all in on that. So I kind of put pressure on myself. Do you know what I mean? And regardless of crowds or no crowds, I'm going to feel the same pressure every time, because every fight just means that much to me.
100%. I think as far as I'm aware, you've had only one loss throughout your whole amateur career, and obviously you're undefeated as a professional. How did you handle that first defeat and then bounce back?
Yeah, probably the best thing that ever happened to me, to be honest, was getting beat at amateur. I think if anyone watches that fight, you could see I was in complete control the whole way through, and then it's my mistake what cost me the fight. It was a mixture of gassing out, panicking a little bit. Just I didn't have the experience that I have now. Do you know what I mean? But in terms of like everyone I fought, you look at the opponent that I lost to compared to like some of the guys I've beat, it's ridiculous. But that was just in terms of his level, I mean. But it was just all on me, that. And I think the main thing I took from it was my conditioning. Like, I thought I was doing everything right and training as hard as I could. You know, I thought I was like, oh, I'm a complete professional already. I do everything right. And in reality, I wasn't doing it right at all. I was probably doing about 50% of what I should have been doing and what I am doing now. So I just completely upped my strength and conditioning side of things after that fight. Took everything more serious, my recovery, even my training, just like... And I feel like I'm still, like, every fight, I'm improving little bits and taking bits from the camp that I liked and thought worked well, and things that I didn't think worked well. But especially after that loss, I had to kind of look back at myself and really evaluate if I was doing everything right. And then obviously since then, I've been on like a 7-fight win streak with 6 finishes or something, including the amateur ones. So yeah.
Well, we've noticed in the past couple of years, Next Gen has been building a lot of really good fighters. Obviously, you got Molly McCann in the UFC, like we mentioned earlier. Now Paddy Pimblett, but also in Cage Warriors, you've got Liam Gittins, yourself, Adam Wilson, and also Matt Bonner. How does it feel, obviously, being surrounded by these top athletes every day?
Brilliant. Exactly what you need. Do you know what I mean? Like we've got such a high level on the mat. You come in and watch our session today. Honestly, there's so many like top athletes all going at it 100% competitive. Do you know what I mean? Like we were wrestling today at the Brilliant Wrestling session, like all going at it, all like putting it in 100%, and everyone's levels growing each week because we're all pushing each other. You become like the people that you surround yourself with. Do you know what I mean? And to have all of us pushing and driving each other on and all being a high level already, we're just improving so much every week. So it's everything having like the training partners that I have.
How did you go about training with Next Gen in the first place?
So when I started out, I started at a gym in Southport. That's where I live. Just a small gym called the Dog Pit. And then I met a lad there called Adam Cullen, who's like one of my best mates now. He fights out of Next Gen as well. And he was more clued up on like UK MMA than me. I didn't really have a clue at the time. I just enjoyed doing it. And he was on to next gen. He knew about Paddy and all that already, and he just said like, this is the gym we need to go to start taking it seriously and stuff. Do you know what I mean? So I just kind of trusted him, and the best thing I ever did was trusted him. It paid off massively. So Adam Cullen, he's got it's thanks to him that we found next gen.
Well, I mentioned before, obviously, Molly McCann's a teammate of yours over at Next Gen. I know you went over to Fight Island with her when she had a fight last year. How was the experience on Fight Island for yourself?
Yeah, that was brilliant. Obviously, when we went over, the fights didn't go our way. Molly and Fishy was fighting as well, but the whole week, just being around all the UFC, and obviously, like Abu Dhabi, we ended up staying in some proper fancy hotel where I've never been and would never have been, but I had to pay for it myself. Do you know what I mean? We flew out on like an Emirates flight, and Molly and that got first class because they were the fighters. But we even got like, we were in the economy or whatever it's called. We had like a whole row to ourselves. They were bringing us like steaks and that for dinner on the plane. And then on the way back, because there wasn't hardly anyone on the flight back, all the coaches and training partners like me, we got to fly back in first class as well, or business it was, or whatever. So that was unreal. Obviously, I've never done that before. And then like I said, just being around like all the UFC, seeing how it works, it's good for me to go and do like a fight week before I get there, because I've experienced it now with Molly. Do you know what I mean? I went to all the meetings that she had and the weigh-ins and everything, so I've kind of got a feel for how a UFC fight week is as well. And to be honest, like the Cage Warriors do a very good job. Their fight week's rather similar, it's just on a smaller scale. Do you know what I mean? Everything Cage Warriors have been doing with the COVID testing and the bubbles and that is very similar to what the UFC did. The UFC just do it on obviously a much bigger scale. But that was a great experience.
Obviously, you said you was there for the UFC fight week. I take it that's just a taste of some things to come.
Exactly, lads. Yeah, that'll be me there in the next year or so. So it's a good experience. To get that experience before I actually go and do it myself is very very beneficial.
You mentioned that your friend got you to train at Next Gen after training in Southport, but what made you get into the sport of mixed martial arts originally?
So I think I was about year 9 at school. So I'd have been about 13 or 14 or something. And I don't know what it was. I was just interested in fighting. Not really. I didn't know about the UFC. I didn't really watch boxing or anything, but I was just interested in learning how to fight. I think it comes from I was in an all boys school. I was pretty small at the time, and like I didn't like the idea that anyone would be able to kind of start on me and beat me up in a fight. Do you know what I mean? I was I was just like, I didn't want to ever be in a situation where I couldn't defend myself. I wanted to be able to be confident enough to say what I wanted and not, you know what I mean, not have anyone be able to give me shit and get away with it. So obviously one of my mates then at the time, Kieran, who was like the hard boy in the year, Kieran Lovelady, he was doing MMA already. And I knew he'd done some type of fighting, but I didn't really know what it was. And at the time I'd like gone to a couple of boxing classes in Ormskirk by mine, and he got wind of it and he was like, "What's this, lad? You getting into a bit of boxing, are you?" And I was like, yeah, I want to try my hand at it. And he said, "No, you want to come and do this MMA? This is proper fighting, what I do." So I was like, "Go ahead, sound." So he took me down to the dog pit where we trained, and it was like a grappling class, and he just tapped me out like about 15 times. You know what I mean? Literally like a 5-minute round. So I was like, flipping heck, I need to learn this. Do you know what I mean? I want to be able to bring the other lads down to the gym and do to them what he done to me.
Yeah.
And that's what I ended up doing. A few of the other lads come throughout the years and train with us, and I tapped them a load. Do you know what I mean? It was boss. So that's how I got into it initially.
100%. Obviously, you've mentioned we spoke about quite a few things. I want to ask about, obviously you mentioned that you live in Southport, but you obviously travel to Liverpool every day. I want to get your opinion on how strong the Liverpool gyms have grown in recent years, because obviously you've got Team Cowbon that bringing out some UFC stars, Next Gen who are having their own range of UFC stars. How strong are the gyms coming up now in Liverpool?
I think the Northwest in general is like a hotbed of MMA talent, especially like now you're seeing all over the UK. We're making more noise in the UFC. You've got the likes of Jack Shaw, who just fought the other day, Arnold Allen, Nathaniel Woods, Paddy now in the UFC, Molly. Like the list goes on. There's a lot of UK stars that are starting to build themselves up, and I think Liverpool in particular and the Northwest seems to be the hotbed for me, for MMA talent in the UK. I think it's growing massively, and I'm just lucky enough that I live like 40 minutes away from the gym. Do you know what I mean? So I can get in and train with them lads at Next Gen. So yeah.
Well, just a couple more things from me. Can we get a prediction? Well, obviously there's no fights booked yet, but can we get a prediction on how many fights we could see in this year for you?
This year, I think I'll fight 3 more times, ideally. Maybe 2, but 3 would be... If I don't get any injuries and I recover straight away after fights and stuff like that, I'd like to fight in June on the Trilogy, September time-ish, and then end of the year, December. That would be a perfect year for me. And as far as prediction goes, there'll be finishes in every single one of them fights. So it doesn't matter who it is or how it happens, but I'll be finishing every single one of them. Keep the streak going.
Love to hear it, man. Is there any shout-out sponsors that you want to give a quick shout-out to?
Yeah, I'll just shout out my sponsors quickly. I've got Finer Filters, who are a company that have been sponsoring me literally since my amateur days. So they do so much for me, help out with all the costs of training. Then I've got Jack Harper, who's another one of my sponsors that helps with the cost of training. Again, he's a massive help and won't be able to do it without him. And then Macro Chef do all my food supplement, all my food meal preps and that in a fight camp and stuff. So they make it much easier cutting weight because I can just bang in a nice, healthy, tasty meal after training and get that down me rather than going the Mackies afterwards and being a fat bastard. So
Yeah.
shout out. Yeah, and then obviously just all my team at Next Gen, all my coaches and training partners and that there.
100%. Where can people find yourself on social media?
I use Instagram mainly, and that's at Nathan Fletcher _, and then it's the same on Twitter. But I'm not really that savvy on Twitter. I don't use it that much. But those are the 2 main ones that I use.
100%. And like we spoke off camera earlier, I may be down in Next Gen in the next few weeks, months, and we'll get some face-to-face interviews done. But before that, I just want to say thank you for your time, mate, and I can't wait to hopefully see you fight again in June.
He's right. Thank you very much for having me back on, mate, and I look forward to seeing you when you come down to the gym. We'll have a chat then.
No doubt, man. Take care.
Thank you.